The fluorescent lights of Mill Ridge Hospital buzz like dying insects above my head, casting everyone in the pallor of the almost dead. I've never liked hospitals. Too many ghosts walking these halls, and I don't mean the supernatural kind, just memories and regrets in human form, myself included. The night nurse who called me here watches as I approach, her face a mixture of relief and doubt. Another person unsure if bringing in a washed-up private investigator was really the solution to their problem. Can't blame her. I'm not sure either. "Detective Marshall?" she asks, though the badge hanging from my wrinkled coat should answer that question. "I'm Mrs. Reeves. Thank you for coming so late." "Just Ray is fine. Haven't been detective for years now." My voice sounds like gravel even to my own ears. Too many cigarettes, too little sleep. "You mentioned something about a sleepwalking boy?" Reeves glances over her shoulder, lowering her voice. "It's the Parker boy. This way." I follow her down the corridor, my shoes squeaking against the freshly mopped linoleum. The hospital at night is a different creature than during visiting hours. Quieter, more honest in its suffering. A place where pain doesn't try to smile. "The mother's waiting," Reeves says, nodding toward a woman sitting alone on a vinyl bench, her posture a study in exhaustion. Karen Parker looks up as we approach. Dark circles cradle her eyes like bruises, and her scrubs suggest she works here, or at least somewhere medical. The cruel irony of a nurse with a sick child isn't lost on me. "Mrs. Parker, this is Ray Marshall, the investigator I mentioned." She stands, extending a hand that trembles slightly. "Please, call me Karen. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure anyone would take this seriously. Why don't you tell me what's happening with your son?" I settle beside her on the bench as Reeves excuses herself, promising coffee. Karen's fingers twist the fabric of her cardigan. "Ethan's always had trouble sleeping, nightmares, sleepwalking. We managed it, but after his father died 6 months ago." She swallows hard. "It changed. Now, during full moons, he gets up and writes." "Writes what exactly?" "Things he couldn't know." Her voice drops. "Details about patients who died here, procedures from decades ago, names of doctors who retired before he was born." My skepticism must show because she continues more urgently. "I'm a nurse, Mr. Marshall. I don't jump to crazy conclusions. But Ethan described a surgery from 1974 in perfect detail. The instruments used, complications that arose. He's 10 years old. And these episodes only happen during full moons." She nods. "Like clockwork, the staff started calling it his moon diary. Some think it's cute, others—" Her eyes drift to a pair of nurses who glance our way before hurrying past, heads bent in conversation. "They're afraid of him." I feel an itch at the back of my neck, the same one I used to get when a case was about to take a turn for the weird. I'd learned to listen to it over the years. The pediatric ward at night has its own pulse, slower than daytime, but somehow more insistent. Fluorescent lights dim to a jaundiced glow, squeaky shoes replaced by the soft padding of night nurses. I sit in an uncomfortable plastic chair beside Ethan Parker's bed, wondering what demons drive a kid to write messages from the dead in his sleep. The coffee in my styrofoam cup has gone cold, bitter, like the thoughts circling my tired brain. Karen Parker had called me 3 days ago, voice tight with that particular strain mothers get when they're trying not to sound crazy while describing the impossible. "He writes things he couldn't know, Mr. Marshall, things about people who died in this hospital decades ago." She'd slid a manila folder across my desk with photocopies of the boy's scribblings, precise medical details, death times, names of doctors long retired or dead. "Please," she'd said, Watch him yourself." So here I am, well past midnight, watching a 10-year-old boy breathe in and out with the steady rhythm of childhood sleep. The night nurse, Reeves, according to her name tag, checks in hourly, eyebrows rising higher each time she finds me still awake. "Most folks give up after the first few hours," she whispers during her 2 a.m. rounds. "You're either dedicated or desperate." Her eyes crinkle at the corners, lined with years of night shifts and secrets. "Probably both," I admit, stretching my back against the unyielding chair. "Has he done anything yet?" She shakes her head. "Usually happens between 3 and 4, if it happens at all. The witching hour." She says this without a hint of irony, then taps her flashlight against her palm. "Call button's right there if you need me." The minutes crawl by. My eyelids grow heavy, thoughts drifting toward old cases, loose ends. I almost miss the first sign, a subtle change in Ethan's breathing, from deep and regular to something shallow and quick. His eyelids flutter but don't open. Not REM sleep. Something else. His fingers twitch first, then his whole hand. I lean forward, fatigue forgotten. His right arm rises slowly, like it belongs to someone else, controlled by invisible strings. I feel the hair on my neck stand up, not from fear, but from that unmistakable feeling when the impossible unfolds before you. I've seen it before, on cases no one else would touch. "Ethan?" I whisper, though Karen had warned me not to interfere. No response. The boy sits up, eyes still closed, movements mechanical. I press the call button for Reeves, never taking my eyes off him. Ethan's hand gropes blindly toward the bedside table where Karen had left paper and pencils, prepared for this nightly ritual. By the time Reeves slips into the room, Ethan is hunched over the paper, pencil moving with a precision that doesn't belong to a child. His writing isn't childish scrawl, but elegant script, the kind they don't even teach anymore. "It's starting," Reeves whispers, keeping her distance. Some nights he just writes, other nights. She crosses herself, a gesture that seems both reflexive and earnest. The pencil scratches against paper, the only sound besides Ethan's shallow breathing. His face remains slack, expressionless, but his hand moves with purpose, filling line after line with tight, meticulous handwriting. I lean closer, careful not to touch him, reading over his shoulder. Dr. Kellerman said the pain would stop, but it didn't. I told Nurse Agnes it hurt worse after the injection. 103.4 degrees at 2:17 a.m. They ice-bathed me, but it didn't help. I heard them say sepsis when they thought I was sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't sleep. Room 414, bed by the window. November 1973. I never saw my mother again. The words chill me more than the hospital's aggressive air conditioning. This isn't the rambling of a disturbed child. These are memories, specific, detailed, clinical, memories that don't belong to the boy writing them. "Jesus," I mutter, "who is this?" As if in answer, Ethan flips to a new page and begins to draw. His strokes are confident, architectural. A floor plan takes shape, corridors, rooms, stairwells. I recognize the general layout of the hospital, but something's off. "That's the old layout," Reeves whispers, closer now. "Before the renovations in '85. The pencil moves faster, more urgent. Ethan marks an X in what appears to be a basement area, then circles it repeatedly, pressing so hard the pencil tip breaks. Without hesitation, he grabs another and continues, adding notes in the margins. "They took us here. The quiet ones, the ones who wouldn't get better. Dr. Kellerman said it was mercy." Nurse Agnes cried. 5 of us in November. I was the last." Reeves makes a strangled sound behind me. I turn to see her face drained of color, eyes fixed on the map. "That's not possible," she whispers. "That section was sealed off after the flood in '78. It doesn't exist anymore. No one has the plans for it." She backs away from the bed, shaking her head. "He can't know this. No one his age could know this." Ethan's hand stills suddenly. The pencil drops from his fingers. For a moment he sits frozen, head tilted as if listening to something we can't hear. Then, with a shudder, he collapses back against the pillows, returning to normal sleep as abruptly as he'd left it. I gather the papers, careful not to disturb their order. The floor plan stares up at me, that insistent X marking a spot that, according to Reeves, no longer exists. My hands are numb from the room's chill, but I feel a warmth in my chest, an uncomfortable heat that I recognize as dread. "Has he ever drawn this before?" I ask Reeves, who's backed all the way to the door. She shakes her head, eyes never leaving the papers in my hand. "Never. And I've been watching him every night since they admitted him." She swallows hard. "Mr. Marshall, that basement, there were rumors back before my time. Bad rumors." "What kind of rumors?" "The kind that get people fired for repeating them." She glances nervously down the hall. "You should talk to Jennings in records. Been here since the '60s, if anyone knows." She trails off as footsteps approach from the hallway. I slip the papers into my coat just as another nurse appears, asking about a patient down the hall. Reeves composes herself remarkably fast, professional mask sliding back into place. She follows her colleague out, but not before giving me a significant look over her shoulder. I turn back to Ethan, peaceful now, no trace of the trance that possessed him minutes ago. Just a small, pale boy with dark circles under his eyes. "What lives inside you, kid? What do you know that you shouldn't?" I settle back in my chair, more awake now than I've been in days. The X on that map burns in my mind like a brand. Whatever Ethan is channeling, it's leading us somewhere specific, somewhere hidden, somewhere people don't want found. And in my experience, that's exactly where you need to look. Hospital Records occupies the dingiest corner of the Mill Ridge Hospital basement, a warren of metal shelving and water-stained ceiling tiles that seems designed to discourage visitors. Jennings, the keeper of this paper mausoleum, looks like he was installed with the original foundation, a gaunt man with spectacles that magnify his watery eyes to alarming proportions. He guards his domain with the territorial instinct of a junkyard dog protecting rusted treasures. "Visitors need administrative approval," he says without looking up from his ancient computer terminal. His fingers tap at the keyboard with the deliberate precision of someone who learned typing when IBM Selectrics were cutting edge. "Especially at 6 in the morning." I slide Reeves's hastily scrawled note across his desk. "The night nurse said you might help me." He squints at the paper, then at me, his expression shifting from annoyance to something more complex. "You're looking into the Parker boy. Not a question." "I am. And Reeves thinks I should show you—" He trails off, glancing around as if the filing cabinets might be eavesdropping. "Records from before the '78 flood, specifically about the old basement wing." I place Ethan's drawing on the desk, folded to show only the floor plan with its insistent X, and any patterns of unexplained deaths, children specifically. Jennings removes his glasses, polishes them with a handkerchief that's seen better decades. "You're either very brave or very foolish, Mr. Marshall, Ray Marshall." I don't volunteer that I'm a PI. Hospital bureaucrats tend to clam up around anyone who might cause legal complications. Well, Mr. Marshall, there are things in this hospital's history that administration would prefer to remain archived. He says the last word like it's a euphemism for something darker. I'm not interested in causing trouble for the hospital. I'm trying to help a scared mother understand what's happening to her son. Something in my tone must convince him. He sighs, shoulders slumping like a man surrendering to inevitability. Wait here. He disappears into the labyrinth of shelves, the squeak of his orthopedic shoes fading into the distance. I'm left alone with the hum of fluorescent lights and the musty smell of paper slowly decomposing. On the walls, framed photographs chronicle the hospital's history. Groundbreaking ceremonies, expansions, smiling administrators from bygone eras. In one faded color photo from what looks like the early 70s, a distinguished man in a white coat stands before a new wing. The plaque identifies him as Dr. William Kellerman, Chief of Pediatrics, 1968-1975. The same name Ethan wrote while in his trance. Jennings returns pushing a cart loaded with 3 cardboard boxes, dust dancing in the air around them. These haven't been digitized. Too old, too sensitive. He sets them on a side table, then checks his watch. I have a meeting in 30 minutes. Whatever you find stays in this room, understand? No photos, no copies. I nod, already reaching for the first box. Start with this one, he says, pushing forward the middle box. November records, various years. Look for the patterns yourself. I won't be part of this directly. He pauses. When you're done, I was never here. With that cryptic instruction, he retreats to his desk, studiously ignoring me. The box contains medical records sorted by year, going back to the 1960s. I focus on Novembers, as Ethan's writing suggested. It doesn't take long to see the pattern. November 1973, 5 pediatric deaths in 1 week, all listed as complications from infection. All in the special care wing, a section that no longer appears on current hospital maps. November 1983, 4 pediatric deaths, unexplained organ failure. Different wing, same supervising physician, Dr. Eleanor Price, who later became a judge. November 1993. 3 children, respiratory distress. Again clustered in the same week. November 2003. 3 more, adverse medication reaction. November 2013. 2 children, different causes listed but deaths occurring within days of each other. I check the lunar calendars included in the administrative records. Each cluster coincides with a full moon. The next full moon is in 3 days. Between the official records are unofficial notes, nurses' observations, maintenance requests, staff complaints. One maintenance report from 1973 mentions unusual noises from the sealed basement areas attributed to settling foundation. A nurse's note from the same period hastily scribbled, Dr. K and Judge P again tonight, children restless after. In the third box I find personnel files. Dr. William Kellerman, celebrated pediatrician, died in 1976, apparent suicide. Nurse Agnes Winters, terminated 1973, no reason listed. Judge Eleanor Price, former hospital board member, still active in the community. The pieces form a mosaic of suspicion, not proof. Children dying in clusters every decade, always in November, always near the full moon. A sealed basement wing. A pediatrician who killed himself. A judge with unusual access. And now, a boy who somehow channels these decades-old secrets. Your time's up, Jennings announces, suddenly beside me. Find what you needed? Maybe. One more question. The basement wing that was sealed after the flood. Has anyone accessed it since? He shakes his head. Officially, no. That section was condemned. Concrete poured over the entrances during the '85 renovation. He leans closer, voice dropping. But there have been rumors over the years. Maintenance staff hearing voices. Night shift seeing lights where there shouldn't be any. He taps Ethan's drawing. And no blueprints of that section survived the flood. Convenient, isn't it? I carefully return everything to its proper box, but slip one nurse's handwritten note into my pocket when Jennings turns away. It contains only a list of names. Children from 1973, I suspect. "Thank you," I tell him as I prepare to leave. "I didn't do this for you," he says, not unkindly. "That Parker boy, he's not the first child to know things he shouldn't, but the others—" He doesn't finish the thought, just turns back to his computer, conversation clearly over. Karen Parker meets me in the hospital cafeteria, an institutional space that manages to make even coffee look unappetizing. She wears scrubs from her night shift, dark circles under her eyes competing with the blue-green fabric for dominance. "You saw it," she says, hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup like it's the only thing keeping her upright. "You saw what he does." I nod, keeping my voice low despite the empty tables around us. "I did, and I've been looking into hospital records." Her eyes sharpen. "You found something. Patterns. Children dying in clusters every decade, always in November, always around the full moon." I slide Ethan's drawing across the table. "And this basement section that supposedly doesn't exist anymore." She stares at the drawing, fingers trembling slightly. "What does it mean? Why is Ethan connected to this?" "I don't know yet, but I think he's channeling memories. Specifically, memories of children who died here. Children who might have died under questionable circumstances." "You think they were killed?" Her voice catches, maternal instinct connecting her son's suffering to these long-dead children. "I think something happened in that basement section, something people have worked very hard to cover up." I hesitate, then add, "and I think Ethan is somehow tapping into it." "But why him? Why now?" "Near-death experiences sometimes. Open doors. Ethan's accident, the coma. It might have made him receptive to these echoes. I'm reaching beyond my expertise here, into territories I've only glimpsed in my strangest cases, but she needs something to hold on to. "The next full moon is in 3 days, she whispers. "I know. They want to sedate him that night." "Dr. Price, she's the hospital administrator. She suggested a special observation protocol." Fear flashes across her face. "I don't trust her, Ray. The way she looks at Ethan like he's a problem to be solved." Ice forms in my gut. "Eleanor Price? Judge Price?" "Yes, she still oversees pediatric protocols here. Why?" The connection solidifies. Judge Price, present during the 1983 deaths, now taking special interest in Ethan. "Too many coincidences. Don't let them sedate him," I say firmly. "In fact, I think we should get him out of here before the full moon." "They won't discharge him. His condition is still under evaluation." "Then I'll stay with him every night until we figure this out." I reach across the table, covering her hand with mine. It's an unprofessional gesture, but there's nothing professional about this case anymore. "I'll protect him, Karen, I promise." Gratitude and fear war in her expression. "Tonight, then?" His episodes have been getting stronger, more detailed. "Tonight," I agree, "and I'm bringing recording equipment. Whatever Ethan channels, we're going to document it." As we stand to leave, I notice a tall, silver-haired woman watching us from across the cafeteria. Her steely eyes meet mine without wavering, her thin lips pressed into a disapproving line. She wears authority like a second skin. Karen follows my gaze and stiffens. That's her, Judge Price. The judge nods slightly in our direction, a gesture that feels more like a warning than a greeting. As we walk past, she speaks just loudly enough for us to hear. The full moon brings clarity, Mr. Marshall. I do hope you're prepared for what it reveals. Karen's hand tightens on my arm as we push through the cafeteria doors. Outside, the morning sun struggles through November clouds, pale and distant. Somewhere in the hospital, Ethan sleeps, unaware of the forces gathering around him. 3 days until the full moon. 3 days to unravel decades of secrets, and somewhere beneath our feet, in a sealed basement that officially doesn't exist, answers wait in the darkness. The hospital corridor stretches before me like a throat swallowing the night, fluorescent lights flickering in a rhythm that might be Morse code for danger. It's past midnight, and Mill Ridge Hospital has transformed into its nocturnal self, a labyrinth where pain doesn't pretend to sleep and secrets breathe in the shadows between rooms. I clutch my worn leather notebook in one hand, digital recorder in the other, tools against whatever waits in Ethan Parker's room tonight. 3 visits and counting, and each time the boy's revelations dig deeper into the hospital's buried past. Room 414, the same room number from Ethan's writings about 1973. Coincidence doesn't exist in my line of work. Either someone placed him here deliberately, or whatever force speaks through him has a sense of irony. Karen stands in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself like she's holding something vital inside. Her nurse's scrubs hang loose on her frame. She's lost weight since I first met her a week ago. "He's already restless," she whispers, stepping aside to let me in. "Started about 10 minutes ago." Ethan lies in the narrow hospital bed, sheets twisted around his thin legs. His eyes move rapidly beneath closed lids, but not in the familiar pattern of REM sleep. This is something else, something intentional. I brought better equipment this time. I set up a small digital camera on a tripod beside the bed, angling it to capture both Ethan and whatever he might write. The recorder goes on the bedside table, red light blinking in the semi-darkness. "Did you bring the new notebooks?" Karen nods, pointing to a stack of fresh composition books on the table. "And different colored pens. Last time he kept reaching for different colors, like he was frustrated with just the black." I arrange the notebooks and pens within easy reach of the bed, then settle into what's become my usual chair. Karen takes the one on the opposite side, her fingers automatically finding the pulse point on Ethan's wrist. The nurse never fully separated from the mother. "His heart rate's elevated," she murmurs. "Body temperature, too. It always happens before an episode. We don't have to wait long." At 12:47, according to my watch, Ethan's breathing changes from shallow to almost mechanical, precisely spaced inhalations and exhalations, like someone consciously controlling their lungs. "It's starting," Karen whispers unnecessarily. Ethan's right hand rises from the bed, as if pulled by invisible strings. His head remains on the pillow, eyes closed, but his arm moves with the deliberate precision of a crane operator. His fingers grope blindly toward the notebooks, and I quickly slide one into his grasp. For 3 minutes he remains motionless, hand resting on the closed notebook. Then, with sudden violence, his eyes snap open, but they don't see us. They stare at the ceiling, pupils dilated into black pools that reflect nothing. "The blue pen," he says, voice high and thin, nothing like his normal tone. "I need the blue pen for the boys and the red for the girls." Karen's hand trembles as she places both pens beside his hand. Ethan grasps the blue one first, then opens the notebook with a single fluid motion. The writing begins, not the hesitant scrawl of a 10-year-old, but the decisive strokes of an adult hand. I lean forward, camera whirring softly as it records. Michael Adler, age 7, November 11th, 1963. Diagnosed with rheumatic fever. Actual cause, experimental treatment, unauthorized. Died at 3:17 a.m. Last words, "It feels cold inside." Ethan pauses, hand hovering above the page. Then he switches to the red pen without looking. Sarah Winters, age 9, November 13th, 1963. Diagnosed with pneumonia. Actual cause, drug trial, parental consent forged. Died at 2:44 a.m. Last words, "Tell my mother I'm sorry." Back to blue. David Chen, age 11, November 15th, 1963. Diagnosed with complications from appendectomy. Actual cause, brain hemorrhage during unrecorded procedure. Died at 4:23 a.m. No last words. Autopsy falsified by Dr. William Kellerman and Nurse Eleanor Price, future Judge Price. The names continue, page after page, alternating blue and red ink. Children from 1963, 1973, 1983, 1993, 2003, 2013. Each entry methodical, specific. Time of death, official cause, actual cause, last words if any. The handwriting shifts subtly between entries, some looping and feminine, others angular and cramped, still others shaky, as if written by elderly hands. Karen's face drains of color with each new name. "These are real children," she whispers. "I recognize some of these names from the memorial plaques in the old wing." Ethan suddenly flips to a fresh page. His hand shakes violently, and the pen digs into the paper with such force that the tip tears through. The handwriting changes again, now childish, uneven, desperate. They are still doing it. Room 801. The quiet room. After midnight, when the moon is full, they come for the ones who won't get better. The hopeless cases. They say it's mercy, but it's not mercy. It's for them. For what they need. His hand switches pens again, grabbing a black one this time, one we didn't provide. I glance at Karen, who shakes her head slightly, eyes wide. The handwriting becomes elegant, flowing script, nothing like what came before. "Detective Marshall, you are noticed now. They know you're looking. The moon comes soon, and they need their tribute. They've always needed it. The bargain was made in 1963 and cannot be broken. Find the first 5 in the basement records. Find why they were chosen. The pattern matters. And watch the boy. They will try to take him next. He sees too much." A final switch, now to a green pen that wasn't there before, writing that slants sharply to the right, cramped and precise. The judge knows, the doctor follows, the nurse obeys. Since 1963, always the same roles, different faces. The price of prosperity is paid in small bodies and silent screams. Ethan's hand drops the pen suddenly. His body goes rigid, back arching off the bed. His eyes, still open but unseeing, roll back until only the whites show. A sound emerges from his throat. Not his voice, not any child's voice, but something ancient and knowing. November 18th, moon full, sacrifice prepared, the cycle continues. Then, just as abruptly as it began, the seizure passes. Ethan collapses against the pillows, eyes closing, breathing returning to normal. Just a small boy again, exhausted by forces he can't control. Karen reaches for him, physician's training warring with maternal instinct. "His pulse is steadying," she says after a moment. "Temperature dropping back to normal." Her voice cracks slightly. "Ray, what is happening to my son?" I carefully collect the notebook, handling it like evidence, which it is. My hands are cold from the hospital's aggressive air conditioning, but I feel that familiar warmth in my chest, the uncomfortable heat of being too close to something terrible and true. I think Ethan is channeling the dead, I say quietly. Not just random dead, specific children who died here under suspicious circumstances, and I think whoever was responsible is still active in this hospital. I flip through the pages of names and dates, the warnings, the accusations. We need to verify these deaths, check records, confirm details. I look up at Karen, whose face has hardened from fear into determination. And we need to get Ethan out of here before the next full moon. 3 days, she whispers. 3 days, I agree. Not much time to stop whatever's been happening here for 60 years. Outside, clouds part briefly, allowing moonlight to slice through the window blinds. Almost full. Almost time. On the bed, Ethan stirs in his now natural sleep, his small hand reaching out for his mother's. Whatever speaks through him has gone silent for now, but its message lingers in the room like a promise, or a threat. Dr. Evelyn Saunders has the kind of office that announces its owner's personality before she speaks. Meticulously organized bookshelves, medical journals arranged by publication date rather than subject, and not a single personal photograph to suggest a life exists beyond these walls. She sits across from me, her white coat pressed to military precision, dark hair pulled back so tightly it seems to function as natural Botox. Her eyes scan Ethan's notebooks for the 3rd time, expression cycling between professional skepticism and unwilling fascination. "Somnambulistic automatic writing isn't unheard of, Mr. Marshall," she says finally, her voice measured in the way of doctors who've practiced delivering bad news. But this level of historical specificity, the consistent alteration in handwriting styles— She taps a manicured nail against a particularly disturbing passage. This suggests something beyond standard parasomnia. "So you believe me?" I ask, surprised by her relative openness. Karen had warned me that Dr. Saunders was brilliant, but traditionally skeptical. "I believe something medically unusual is happening," she corrects, sliding her glasses up her nose. "Whether that something involves channeling the deceased or accessing buried hospital information through some other means remains to be proven." I suppress a smile at her careful phrasing. "Karen said you've reviewed Ethan's EEG readings during episodes?" "Yes, they're—" For the first time, professional certainty falters. "Anomalous. During these episodes, his brain activity resembles neither standard sleep patterns nor seizure activity. It's almost as if—" She stops herself. "As if what?" "As if multiple consciousness patterns are overlapping." She closes the notebook decisively. "But that's impossible, of course." "Of course, I've built a career on impossible things." "I need access to historical death records," I say. "Patient files from the years mentioned in Ethan's writings. November deaths, specifically." Her eyebrows rise fractionally. "Those would be restricted. Even as head of sleep medicine, I would need justification." I push Ethan's notebooks toward her again. "This is your justification. A patient manifesting unexplained symptoms that correlate with historical events. Isn't that enough medical reason?" She considers this, fingers drumming silently on her desk. Her eyes drift to a framed certificate, the Hippocratic Oath in elegant calligraphy. Something shifts in her expression. "Wait here," she says, rising. "I'll see what I can do." Dr. Saunders' badge gets us into the digital archives room, a sterile space dominated by computer terminals and scanners. The older records have been digitized but not widely accessible, a middle ground between destruction and transparency. "We have 40 minutes, she says, logging into a terminal with an administrator password. "My colleague thinks I'm reviewing sleep study data." Her fingers fly across the keyboard, navigating through folders of patient records. November 1963, you said? I consult my notes from Ethan's writings. Start with Michael Adler, age 7. November 11th, 1963. The search yields results almost immediately. A scanned death certificate, admission records, treatment notes. Dr. Saunders reads aloud. Admitted November 9th, diagnosed with rheumatic fever. Treated with standard protocol plus experimental antibiotic regimen. She frowns. Experimental protocol not specified. Patient expired 3:17 a.m. November 11th. My skin prickles. Exactly the time Ethan wrote. Coincidence, she murmurs, but without conviction. Try Sarah Winters, November 13th, same year. Another search, another match. Time of death, 2:44 a.m., exactly as Ethan had written. Cause, complications from pneumonia. Attending physician, Dr. William Kellerman. Nurse on duty, Eleanor Price. We continue through the list. Name after name, date after date, time after time. Perfect matches to Ethan's writings. Details no child could know, some so obscure they'd required Dr. Saunders' highest clearance to access. This is... Dr. Saunders removes her glasses, pinching the bridge of her nose. This is not explicable through conventional medical understanding. Keep going, I urge, pointing to the next name. David Chen, 1963. The record appears, but with a notation. Additional materials in physical archives only, reference code B6311R. Dr. Saunders frowns. That's unusual. B63 would be basement archives, restricted section. She turns to me, professional detachment cracking slightly. Mr. Marshall, these children all died under similar circumstances, admitted with manageable conditions, unexpectedly expired during night shifts, all in November, all during full moon phases. All with the same attending physician and nurse, I add, and all with some form of experimental treatment, noted but never detailed. Her voice drops lower. This pattern extends through every decade you've listed. Different doctors, different nurses, but the same pattern. Always in November, always during the full moon, always... Her office phone rings, cutting through the tense silence. She answers, listens for less than 10 seconds, then stands abruptly. It's Ethan, another episode, but different. We need to go now. Ethan's hospital room has transformed from quiet sick room to chaotic scene. 2 nurses flank his bed, faces tight with professional concern, masking deeper fear. Karen stands against the wall, hands pressed to her mouth, eyes wide and glassy. And in the center of it all, Ethan sits upright in bed, but the boy I've come to know is nowhere present in those vacant eyes. "Tell them to stop touching me," he shrieks, voice high and girlish, nothing like his own. "I don't want the needle. I told Nurse Price it hurts. It burns inside." Dr. Saunders pushes past me, medical training overriding whatever doubts our research has planted. "Ethan, can you hear me? I'm Dr. Saunders." Ethan's head swivels toward her, but his expression remains foreign, a different person looking through his eyes. "Not Ethan," he says, voice suddenly deeper, older. "David Chen. They said my appendix was fixed, but they put something in my head instead. It's still there. You can see it if you look." He points to his temple with a trembling finger. Karen makes a strangled sound from her position against the wall. I move to her side, placing a steadying hand on her arm. "How long has he been like this?" I ask quietly. 20 minutes, she whispers. "It started with writing, like before, but then he started speaking. Different voices, different children. He knows things, Ray. Medical terms no 10-year-old would know. Procedures that haven't been used in decades." On the bed, Ethan's demeanor shifts again. His posture changes, shoulders hunching, head tilting at an unnatural angle. When he speaks, his voice is soft, feminine, with a slight lisp. "They take us to the basement when it's time," he says, eyes fixed on something none of us can see. "Room B6311R, the special room. They say we're helping medicine, helping the hospital grow strong." A tear slides down his cheek. "But it hurts so much, and they never stop when we scream." Dr. Saunders approaches cautiously, stethoscope in hand. "I need to check his vitals," she murmurs. "This level of dissociation could indicate—" Ethan's hand shoots out, grabbing her wrist with surprising strength. "You smell like her," he hisses, voice changing again, now raspy and aged. "Like the judge. She wore the same perfume when she was just Nurse Price, when she held us down for the doctor." His fingers tighten. "Are you one of them? Are you going to take more children when the moon is full?" Dr. Saunders pales, trying to maintain professional composure. "I'm just trying to help you, Ethan. No one is going to hurt you." Ethan laughs, a horrible sound like glass breaking. "Lies, always lies. They told Michael that. They told Sarah that. They told all of us that." His gaze shifts to me, suddenly lucid and terribly aware. "They're going to do it again. November 18th. The basement room is ready. They need 5, like in the beginning. Always 5 in the special years." "Special years?" I ask, unable to help myself. "Every 10th year needs more. 1963, 1973, 1983, 1993, 2003, 2013. He struggles to sit up straighter. 2023, now, 3 days left. Dr. Saunders finally pulls her arm free, backing away from the bed. Her scientific skepticism battles visibly with what she's witnessing. "This isn't possible," she whispers. "He couldn't know about B6311R. Those records are sealed. That section is sealed." "The dead know," Ethan says, voice suddenly his own again, small and frightened. "They show me. They talk through me. They want it to stop." His eyes roll back, body going limp as he collapses against the pillows. The room erupts into medical activity. Dr. Saunders barking orders, nurses checking vitals, Karen pushing forward to her son's side. I stand back, watching the controlled chaos, mind racing to connect the fragments we've gathered. 10 minutes later, Ethan is stabilized, sleeping naturally according to Dr. Saunders. The 3 of us retreat to the hallway, voices low. "Every record matched," I tell Karen. "Times, dates, causes, exactly as Ethan wrote them." "And B6311R?" she asks. Dr. Saunders glances nervously down the corridor before answering. "It's a restricted section in the old basement archives, supposedly flooded and sealed in 1978. She hesitates. "But Ethan's description matches coding systems that weren't made public. There's no way he could know this." "Unless he's really channeling these children," Karen says. "Or accessing hospital records somehow," Dr. Saunders counters, clinging to rational explanation. "Either way," I interject, "something happened to those children. Something connected to full moons, to November, to a pattern that's continued for 60 years. I look through the door at Ethan's sleeping form. And if Ethan is right, it's happening again in 3 days. Dr. Saunders runs a hand over her immaculate hair, the gesture revealing how shaken she truly is. "I can help you access the physical archives in the basement," she says finally. "The records with the B63 designation. There might be more information there." "And Ethan?" Karen asks. "He's getting worse with each episode. I'm afraid of what happens next." "I'll authorize a private room with monitoring equipment," Dr. Saunders says, "and I'll stay tonight. Observe him medically. If he has another episode, I want to run a full neural scan during it. And if Judge Price asks why you're taking such an interest, I ask. Something hardens in Dr. Saunders's eyes, professional detachment giving way to moral certainty. I'll tell her I'm conducting a sleep study, standard protocol. She straightens her white coat. Meet me tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., service elevator to the old archives. We'll find what's in those files. As she walks away, Karen turns to me, fear and determination warring in her expression. Do you think we can stop it? Whatever's been happening all these years? I think of the voices speaking through Ethan, children dead for decades, still crying out for justice. My hands are cold from the hospital's eternal chill, but that familiar warmth spreads through my chest. Not guilt this time, but resolve. We've got 3 days to try, I tell her, and 60 years of ghosts on our side. Hospital administrations move like glaciers, slow, grinding, and inexorable, except when they want to bury something. Then they become avalanches. I notice the change the moment I step through the Millridge Hospital entrance at 7 a.m. Security guards who previously nodded with bored indifference now track my movement with deliberate attention. A maintenance worker appears unusually interested in cleaning the same section of floor near Ethan's room. At the nurse's station, conversations pause as I pass, resuming in whispers once I'm supposedly out of earshot. Word has spread. Questions are being asked, and someone doesn't like the answers. Karen waits in Ethan's room, hair disheveled, eyes shadowed by another sleepless night. Ethan himself is awake but quiet, drawing intricate patterns on a notepad, concentric circles that resemble a map or blueprint. Dr. Saunders is notably absent. "Sleep okay?" I ask Karen, knowing the answer before she shakes her head. This was under my windshield wiper when I went to the car for a change of clothes. She hands me a folded paper, hospital letterhead with the logo torn off, message composed of letters cut from magazines and glued in place. Old-school intimidation. Nurses should care for patients, not ask questions. Good mothers protect their children by staying silent. "We've watched your family for years. Stop now, or Ethan won't leave Millridge alive." The note feels heavy in my hand, weighted with malice. "You reported this?" "To hospital security. They suggested it was probably a prank from someone who overheard us discussing Ethan's delusions." Her bitter emphasis on the last word tells me exactly what she thinks of that assessment. "And Dr. Saunders?" "Called to an emergency meeting with Chief of Medicine Lowell and Judge Price. Early this morning?" Karen lowers her voice, glancing at Ethan, who continues drawing, seemingly oblivious. "She texted that they're questioning her research into Ethan's case, suggesting she's encouraging harmful fantasies." I pocket the threatening note. Amateur intimidation tactics usually suggest desperation, someone afraid of what might be uncovered. "They're moving fast means we're onto something real. Or that my son is in danger." Karen's voice cracks slightly. "Ray, I'm scared, not just of whatever happened to those children. I'm scared of what's happening now to Ethan." Before I can respond, Ethan looks up from his drawing, eyes clear and present in a way they haven't been since I met him. "The door is behind the shelves," he says matter-of-factly. "In the old archive room. Section M63, Medical Trials. The shelf swings open if you push the 3rd volume from the right on the 2nd shelf." He returns to his drawing as if he hadn't spoken. Karen and I exchange glances. "Ethan, honey," she says carefully, "what door are you talking about?" "The door to the room where they took the children." He doesn't look up. "The room that's not on the maps anymore. The children showed me. They want us to find it before the moon gets full." My skepticism burned away days ago, replaced by a growing certainty that Ethan is indeed channeling something genuine. "Is that what you're drawing? The room?" He nods, sliding the paper toward me. It's not random circles as I'd thought, but a detailed floor plan, familiar yet different from the current hospital layout. In one corner, a section is heavily shaded with a small X marked in red. "That's where they kept the special medicines," he says, "the ones that made us help them talk to the other side." A chill runs through me that has nothing to do with hospital air conditioning. "Ethan, we need to find that room. Would you recognize it if you saw it?" He nods again. "The children would show me. They're always with me now." Karen starts to protest, but I cut her off with a gentle hand on her arm. "I know it sounds crazy, but if there's evidence in that room, we need to find it before someone else destroys it. 2 days until the full moon. Whatever's happened here for 60 years, it's ramping up again." She stares at me, conflict evident in her expression. Protect her son by keeping him away from danger, or trust that he might be the key to ending it. Finally, she sighs. "What's your plan?" "Dr. Saunders gave me her access card before she was called away." I pat my pocket. "We go to the archives now, while everyone's distracted with the morning shift change. Find whatever's behind that shelf Ethan mentioned." "And if we're caught?" "I'm investigating historical records for a patient's family," I say with more confidence than I feel. "Nothing suspicious about that. The service elevator to the basement archives requires Dr. Saunders' key card and a code she scribbled on the back of her business card. The descent feels longer than the 3 floors it actually travels, the ancient mechanism groaning like it's lowering us into a tomb. Ethan stands between Karen and me, small hand cold in mine. He hasn't spoken since we left his room, but his eyes track the floor numbers with eerie intensity. The elevator opens onto a dimly lit corridor lined with filing cabinets and shelves. The basement archives smell of mildew and disuse, the lighting flickering as if struggling against the weight of darkness. Our footsteps echo on the linoleum floor, impossibly loud in the silence. "Which way?" I ask Ethan quietly. He points without hesitation to a door marked Medical Archives, Authorized Personnel Only. Another swipe of Dr. Saunders' card, and we're inside a cavernous room of towering shelves, organized by decade and department. "Section M63, Ethan says, voice distant. "Medical trials." He leads us unerringly through the labyrinth of shelving, past boxes of films and documents from the hospital's history. His movements are confident, as if he's walked this path before. We find the section easily enough, a corner unit with dusty volumes of trial reports and patient data. Ethan stops, staring at the shelving. "Third volume from the right, second shelf," he murmurs, repeating his earlier instructions. I locate the book. Experimental Protocols, 1960-1965, and pull it partway out. Nothing happens. "Push it," Ethan says. "Don't pull." I push the volume back, feeling resistance, then a soft click. The entire shelving unit shifts slightly, revealing a seam in what I'd taken for solid wall. A gentle push, and the shelf swings inward like a door, revealing a narrow passage beyond. "Jesus," Karen whispers. The hidden corridor is dark, the air stale and undisturbed for what must be decades. I flick on my penlight, revealing peeling paint and cobwebs. The beam catches something reflective, a brass plaque beside a heavy wooden door at the corridor's end. The numbers match Ethan's drawing, B6311R. "The special room," Ethan says tonelessly, "where they did the procedures." Karen grips his shoulder protectively. "Ray, I don't like this. We should go back, call someone. Who would believe us? I ask gently. We need proof, Karen. Something concrete to take to authorities outside this hospital. I try the door handle, locked, unsurprisingly. Stay here with Ethan. I'll see if I can. It's not locked, Ethan interrupts. Just stuck. The children say to push with your shoulder where the hinges are rusted. I give him a long look, then do as instructed. The door resists, then gives way with a groan of neglected metal. Stale air rushes out, carrying the ghost of medicinal smells and something else. Something coppery and organic that sets off alarm bells in my hindbrain. The room beyond is small, clinical, frozen in time. An examination table dominates the center, leather restraints hanging from its sides. Glass cabinets line the walls, filled with bottles and instruments that belong in a medical history museum or a horror film. A large machine hulks in one corner, dials and gauges dark with disuse, a helmet-like apparatus dangling from cables above what looks disturbingly like a child-sized chair. This is it, Ethan whispers, stepping past me into the room despite his mother's attempt to hold him back. This is where they tried to make us talk to the others. Others? I ask, following him inside, penlight sweeping the disturbing tableau. The ones on the other side, the ones they made the bargain with. He walks to the machine, small hand hovering over its control panel without touching it. They thought children could hear them better, especially sick children, ones already close to death. Karen makes a small, pained sound. Ray, we need to document this, then get out. This place feels wrong. She's right. Despite the decades of abandonment, the room feels charged, expectant, as if it's been waiting for visitors. I pull out my phone, starting to photograph everything. The examination table, the restraints, the cabinets of medications labeled with codes rather than names, the machine with its sinister helmet. Ethan drifts around the room like a sleepwalker, touching objects lightly. A small gown hanging from a hook, an ancient clipboard with yellowed papers. They kept records, he says. In there. He points to a filing cabinet wedged between medical equipment. The cabinet is locked, but the decades have weakened the metal. A few strategic pulls, and the drawer slides open with a screech of protest. Inside, manila folders labeled by date, November 1963, November 1973, and so on, through 2013. Each contains photographs, medical charts, and handwritten notes detailing procedures performed on children whose names match those in Ethan's writings. My God, Karen breathes, looking over my shoulder. They really did experiment on these children. The notes are clinical, detached, describing attempts to enhance receptivity to cross-dimensional communication through drug cocktails and electrical stimulation. The most recent folder, from 2013, includes a typewritten summary. Subjects continue to show increased receptivity during lunar maximums. Recommend continuing protocol for 2023 series with refinements to dosing as outlined in Appendix C. They're planning to do it again, I say, the implications sinking in. In 2 days, the full moon. 5 children, Ethan says suddenly, voice distant. They always need 5 in the special years. He turns in a slow circle, eyes unfocused. They're here with us now, the ones who didn't make it. Michael, Sarah, David, all of them. His voice drops to a whisper. They say someone's coming. As if on cue, a sound echoes from the corridor outside. Footsteps, measured and deliberate, growing closer. The single bulb illuminating the hidden room flickers, dimming, then brightening in an erratic rhythm. We need to hide, I whisper. gathering the most damning documents and shoving them into my coat pocket. Or find another way out. There isn't one, Ethan says with terrible certainty. There never was for the children. The footsteps stop just outside the door. The light flickers again, then stabilizes, casting long shadows across the room's instruments of medical torture. Karen pulls Ethan against her protectively, backing toward the far wall. I position myself between them and the door, useless as that might be, against whoever controls this hospital's darkest secrets. A shadow falls across the threshold. The temperature in the room drops precipitously, my breath suddenly visible in the chill air. Ethan's eyes widen, fixed on something beyond the doorway that Karen and I can't yet see. "It's her," he whispers, "the one who held us down, the one who made the bargain." His voice changes, becoming a chorus of childish whispers. "The judge is coming." The light gives one final violent flicker. In that moment of near darkness, I feel a presence enter the room, something that brings with it the weight of decades of suffering and secrets, something that doesn't want to be exposed, something willing to silence us to maintain the cycle that's fed it for 60 years. And as the light stabilizes, revealing who or what stands in the doorway, I realize that the horror of Mill Ridge Hospital isn't just in its past. It's very much alive in its present, and hungry for its future. Judge Eleanor Price fills the doorway, silver hair pulled into a severe bun, her tailored suit as crisp as a new dollar bill. The room temperature seems to drop another 10 degrees in her presence. Her steel-gray eyes take in the scene, the open filing cabinet, the documents in my hand, Karen and Ethan backed against the far wall, with the calculated assessment of someone tallying damages rather than witnessing a crime. "Mr. Marshall." Her voice is winter water, smooth and cold. "Mrs. Parker." "And young Ethan, of course. I'm not surprised to find you here." She steps into the room with the practiced authority of someone who's never been denied entry anywhere. "Though I am disappointed in Dr. Saunders. Her access card, I presume?" I shift my weight, positioning myself more firmly between her and the Parkers. My hand slides the most damning documents deeper into my pocket. "Judge Price, or should I say Nurse Price, your career change after 1963 seems to have been quite the promotion." Something flickers in her eyes. Not fear, but calculation. "You've been thorough. More than most who've stumbled down here over the decades." She glances at the ancient equipment, almost fondly. "They rarely leave to tell anyone, of course." Karen's arms tighten around Ethan. "What did you do to those children?" Her voice shakes, but her eyes are steady, a mother's fury building beneath her fear. Price sighs, like we're all being very tedious. "Nothing that wasn't necessary, nothing that didn't serve a greater purpose." She gestures to the filing cabinet. "Yes, I was Nurse Price once. I assisted Dr. Kellerman with the original protocols. The beginnings are always messy. Science advancing through trial and error." "This wasn't science," I say, nodding toward the child-sized restraints on the examination table. "This was torture, murder, documented in your own records." "Such limited perspective." Price shakes her head. "Do you know what Mill Ridge was before 1963? A dying town, factory closing, hospital on the verge of bankruptcy. Then Dr. Kellerman discovered something quite extraordinary." Her finger traces the edge of the strange machine with its helmet apparatus. "Certain children, the sick ones, the ones already halfway between worlds, could act as conduits." Ethan stirs against his mother, his eyes taking on that distant, vacant look I've come to recognize. "Conduits to the other side," he whispers, but the voice isn't entirely his own. "They needed 5, always 5 in the special years." Price's attention snaps to Ethan, her expression sharpening. "Remarkable, just like the others. Do you hear them clearly, boy? All of them? Michael and Sarah and David?" "Don't talk to him," Karen hisses, trying to pull Ethan away, but he stands rooted to the spot. I use the distraction to scan the documents I've managed to conceal. Patient logs, treatment protocols, results recorded in clinical language that can't quite disguise the horror beneath. Children kept awake during full moons, administered experimental compounds, connected to machines designed to amplify psychic receptivity. And at the bottom of each page, a notation. Prosperity index following procedure. Increased 27%. "You sacrificed children for money," I say, the pieces clicking into place. "Every decade, always in November, always during the full moon." Price smiles thinly. "For the greater good, Detective Marshall. The hospital thrived, the town flourished, one small price to pay for thousands to prosper." She steps further into the room, the door closing behind her with a soft, final click. It wasn't just money. It was everything. Health, growth, protection. The arrangement requires maintenance. "Arrangement with whom?" I demand, though part of me doesn't want the answer. Ethan's head snaps up, his eyes rolling back to show only whites. When he speaks, it's in a chorus of children's voices, overlapping and echoing. The ones beyond the veil, the hungry ones. They take us and give back fortune. A bargain in blood. Price doesn't seem surprised by Ethan's transformation. If anything, she looks impressed. "The most receptive subject we've seen in decades. No wonder the others speak through him so clearly." She takes another step forward. "You understand, of course, that you can't leave with this knowledge, not with the cycle so close to completion." My gun feels heavy in its holster, but I don't reach for it. Not yet. There's still too much I need to know. "The cycle ends now. We have enough evidence to bring down everyone involved." "Evidence?" Price laughs, a sharp sound like breaking glass. "Against whom? Doctors long dead? A system that's protected itself for 60 years? She gestures around the room. "This will all be gone by morning. Concrete poured, records burned. It's happened before when curious people found their way down here." Ethan suddenly lurches forward, breaking from his mother's grip. His movements are jerky, uncoordinated, like a puppet with tangled strings. "You broke your promise," he says, but it's not Ethan speaking. It's a small girl's voice, high and accusing. "You said we'd be the last. In 1963, 5 children to seal the bargain for 10 years. But you lied. The terms evolved," Price says carefully, addressing the entity speaking through Ethan. "The prosperity required greater investment over time." Investment. I spit the word back at her. "These were children, not stocks. Human beings." "Dying children," Price corrects. "Terminal cases, most of them. We simply gave meaning to their inevitable deaths." "My appendix was fixed," Ethan says in yet another voice. Deeper, a boy approaching adolescence. "I was getting better. You made me sick again for the procedure." His hand points accusingly at Price. "You held me down." Karen makes a small, strangled sound. "You're still doing it. The next 5 children, you've already selected them, haven't you?" Price's face hardens. "The 2023 protocol is prepared, yes. Special years require special measures. The 60th anniversary of the original bargain." Her gaze flicks to Ethan. "Your son's sensitivity made him an ideal candidate to monitor. We never expected him to start channeling quite so effectively." My hands are numb from the room's unearthly chill, but I feel a warmth in my chest, an uncomfortable heat that I recognize as rage. "You won't touch him, or any other child. This ends tonight. Does it? Price glances at her watch, unperturbed. In 48 hours, the moon will be full. The protocols will proceed. And you three? Her smile is thin and terrible. Well, knowing doesn't mean leaving. The basement has room for more secrets. Ethan's body goes rigid, his voice a symphony of childish whispers. She's not alone. The doctor is coming. The one who follows. The one who obeys. As if summoned by the dead children speaking through Ethan, footsteps echo in the corridor outside. Price's smile widens fractionally. Right on schedule, she says. I believe you've met our chief of medicine, Dr. Lowell. He's quite invested in maintaining the cycle. His daughter's cancer treatment was remarkably successful after the 2013 procedures. I reach for my phone, hoping to activate the recording function before Lowell arrives, but the screen remains dark, no signal this deep underground. The evidence in my pocket suddenly feels insufficient against the weight of 6 decades of protected secrets. Ethan slumps against his mother, the chorus of voices fading. In his own voice, small and frightened, he whispers, "The children say we can't leave, not until we help them." Price's eyes gleam with something like victory. You see, even they understand. Some bargains can't be broken. She gestures to the door as it begins to open. Now, shall we discuss your place in all this? The cycle continues in 2 days, with or without your cooperation. Dr. Henry Lowell steps into the room like he's entering a slightly disappointing surgical theater. He wears authority like other men wear cologne, too much and applied in all the wrong places. His silver hair is combed with military precision, his white coat pristine despite the dusty surroundings. His eyes, cold as surgical steel, assess us with clinical detachment. Judge Price, he acknowledges with a slight nod before turning to us. Mr. Marshall, Mrs. Parker? His gaze settles on Ethan with undisguised interest. And our young phenomenon. I see you've been giving our guests a history lesson. They found the archives themselves, Price replies. Quite resourceful. Mr. Marshall has been thorough in his investigation. Lowell circles the room, running a finger along the dusty equipment. Unfortunate timing. So close to completion of the cycle. You can't possibly think you'll get away with this, I say, fighting to keep my voice steady. 3 more witnesses, documented evidence. Evidence of what, exactly? Price interrupts. Experimental treatments from decades ago? Tragic but necessary medical research? She smiles thinly. Do you know how many children's lives have been saved by Millridge's exceptional pediatric care? Hundreds, thousands over the decades. Paid for with the lives of other children. Karen spits, her arms still protectively around Ethan. A necessary calculation, Lowell says with the detached tone of someone discussing budget allocations. 5 lives every decade, or in special years, perhaps a few more, weighed against the thousands saved by our hospital's prosperity. You're talking about human sacrifice, I say, disgust rising in my throat. Price laughs. A crisp, humorless sound. How medieval! We prefer to think of it as energy transfer. The boundary between worlds thins during full moons. Certain children, already compromised, already close to crossing over, can serve as conduits. Conduits for what? I demand. For what exists beyond? Lowell answers, his scientific detachment slipping, revealing something like reverence. The entities require tribute. In exchange, they grant benefits, health, prosperity, protection. I've seen enough in my career to know that sometimes the monsters wear lab coats and judicial robes. My gun sits heavy in its holster, but I know that shooting them won't bring justice to 60 years of victims. My badge is long gone, my authority unofficial. If I act now, I become the criminal. You justify murder with superstition, I say. Dress it up in medical terminology to sleep at night. We have measured the results, Mr. Marshall, Lowell replies. Empirically, after each procedure, cancer remission rates in our hospital rise 40%. Surgical success rates improve. Even the town's economic indicators surge. He adjusts his glasses. The correlation is undeniable. Correlation isn't causation, Karen says, her nurse's training evident in her challenge. That's basic scientific method. True, Price concedes with an indulgent smile. Except when we delayed the procedure in 1993, a moral wavering on my part, 300 children in Mill Ridge developed a mysterious respiratory illness within the month. 37 died. Her eyes harden. We completed the protocol. The illness vanished. My mind races, searching for a way out that doesn't end with us joining the hospital's buried secrets. The evidence in my pocket feels simultaneously damning and useless. Who would believe us against the word of a respected judge and doctor? Ethan suddenly straightens, his small body going rigid. You promised 5, he says, his voice once again a chorus of children's voices layered atop each other. 5 children for 10 years of prosperity. That was the bargain. But you grew greedy. Price and Lowell exchange glances. The needs evolved, Price says carefully, as did the benefits. You broke the terms, Ethan continues, pointing an accusing finger at Price. You took more than was agreed. You promised us rest, but you keep calling us back. His voice shifts, becoming something older, deeper than any child. The hunger grows with each feeding. A chill runs through the room that has nothing to do with the basement's dampness. Even Price seems momentarily unsettled. The protocols have been adjusted over time, Lowell says, professional mask slipping further. The entities require more now, but the town receives more in return. And what happens when they require too much, I ask. When 5 children isn't enough? Will it be 10, 20, the entire pediatric ward? You're being dramatic, Price dismisses, but I catch the flicker of doubt in her eyes. We need to discuss how to proceed, Lowell says, turning to Price. The cycle completes in 2 days. We can't afford disruption. Agreed, Price nods. I suggest we secure our guests until after the full moon. The basement has adequate facilities. And after? Lowell asks. Price's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Records indicate a private investigator with financial troubles and declining mental health broke into restricted hospital areas, becoming violent when discovered. A tragedy, but these things happen. You'd frame me for murder, I say flatly. We've managed more complicated narratives, Price replies. A nurse with troubling delusions about her son's condition, a boy whose tragic condition made him susceptible to suggestion. She glances at the filing cabinet. All this will be removed tonight. Concrete poured, as we've done before. I need to stall, to find some advantage. If you're so confident in your moral high ground, why the cover-up? Why not tell the town the truth about its prosperity? Lowell snorts. People want benefits without costs, Mr. Marshall. They want medical miracles without understanding the sacrifices required. You're not gods to decide who lives and dies, Karen says, voice shaking with anger. No, Price agrees. We're simply the caretakers of a system much older than ourselves. The entities have always been here, beneath Mill Ridge. They were hungry long before the hospital was built. My options narrow with each passing moment. I can see Lowell eyeing the documents visible in my pocket, calculating how to retrieve them. If I surrender them, we lose our only leverage. If I resist, I give them justification for whatever they plan next. Ethan's eyes roll back, showing only whites. His voice rises, no longer just a chorus of children, but something else, something ancient and furious. "You broke the bargain!" The words echo through the small room with impossible volume, rattling the glass cabinets and sending dust showering from the ceiling. Price takes an involuntary step back. For the first time, fear crosses her composed features. "Control the boy," Lowell hisses, reaching for what I now recognize as an ancient syringe on a nearby tray. "Don't touch him," I warn, finally drawing my gun. It's a line crossed, a point of no return, but some situations fall outside the law's reach. Some justice can't wait for courtrooms. "Think carefully, Marshal," Price says, eyes on the weapon. "Shoot us, and you'll never leave this hospital. The system protects itself." "I'm not aiming to shoot," I lie, keeping the gun steady. "Just to ensure you listen. The bargain is broken, Judge Price. The children are speaking, and I think whatever entities you've been feeding all these years aren't happy with the management." The lights flicker violently. Equipment that hasn't been powered in decades suddenly hums to life. Gauges spinning, dials turning of their own accord. The old machine in the corner, with its helmet-like apparatus, begins to emit a high-pitched whine. "That's not possible," Lowell whispers, staring at the awakening equipment. "The power was disconnected decades ago." Ethan's voice, still that impossible chorus, fills the room. "You promised us rest. You promised us peace. Instead, you bound us here. Decades of pain." His small hand points to the file cabinet. "The evidence doesn't just condemn you, it releases us." I understand then what we've truly uncovered, not just evidence of murder, but a key to something older, something binding. The documents aren't just proof for earthly courts, but something more fundamental. "We're taking these files," I say with newfound confidence, "and you're going to let us leave." Price's composure cracks further. "You can't. The cycle, if it's interrupted." "Then maybe it's time for Mill Ridge to survive on its own merits," I reply. "Without blood sacrifice." "You have no idea what you're doing," Lowell warns, fear replacing clinical detachment. "The entities won't simply go away. They'll demand their due, without the protocols to control them. Then perhaps they should come for those who made the bargain," Karen suggests, her voice hard. "Instead of innocent children." Ethan slumps suddenly in his mother's arms, the presence speaking through him momentarily quieted. The machines continue their impossible activation, a mechanical chorus backing our confrontation. Price looks from Ethan to the evidence in my pocket, calculation replacing fear. "This isn't over, Marshal. Some wheels, once set in motion, can't be stopped." She steps back toward the door. "Take your evidence. It won't matter. Not with the full moon in 2 days." I keep my gun trained on them as Karen gathers Ethan, who seems drained by the possession. The scales have tipped in our favor, but precariously. We've uncovered the truth, but as Price says, knowing doesn't automatically bring justice or safety. The service elevator groans like a reluctant confessor as it carries us up from the basement, the evidence of 60 years of atrocities tucked inside my coat. Karen clutches Ethan to her side, his small body limp with exhaustion after channeling so many lost souls. Price and Lowell didn't follow us. Something in the awakening of those ancient machines seemed to hold them back, as if the ghosts of their victims had temporarily claimed that territory as their own. "They won't let us just walk away," Karen whispers, her nurse's eyes cataloging Ethan's pallor with professional concern. "Not with what we know, not with what we have." "They won't have to let us," I reply, checking my watch. We have less than 48 hours until the full moon. They'll be desperate to complete their cycle, which means they'll be sloppy. I pat the documents inside my coat. And we have something they don't think matters. Proof. Price said it wouldn't matter, Karen reminds me. Who would believe us? The elevator shudders to a stop at the main floor. When the doors slide open, the hospital's normal bustle feels surreal after the tomb-like quiet of the basement. Nurses pushing medication carts, orderlies wheeling patients, the antiseptic smell of routine healthcare masking darker secrets below. It's not about who believes us, I say, guiding them toward a side exit. It's about who believes them when they incriminate themselves. In my car, parked in the far corner of the hospital lot, I spread the documents across the back seat. Karen sits with Ethan in the front, his head resting against her shoulder, eyes closed but breathing steady. Ethan's diary, I explain, holding up the notebook filled with his automatic writing. The hospital records, the photos I took of that room. It's not enough for a conviction, not yet, but it's enough to shake them, to make them talk. How? Karen asks. I pull out a small digital recorder and an old police radio from under the seat. An old trick from my detective days. We're going to make Judge Price confess on record. She'd never. She will, I say with more confidence than I feel, because she thinks she's smarter than us, thinks her position protects her. I check the radio's battery, then clip the small recorder to its transmission switch. And because deep down, after 60 years, part of her wants the burden gone. I outline my plan as quickly as possible. Karen will take Ethan to Officer Mark Benton, the only cop I've met in this town who seemed untouched by the influence of Judge Price. I'll confront Price directly with the radio transmitting everything to Benton's cruiser. A risky play, but we're out of time and options. What if it doesn't work? Karen asks, her fingers absently stroking Ethan's hair. Then get Ethan as far from Mill Ridge as possible, I tell her. Before the full moon. Judge Price's chambers at the county courthouse are exactly what you'd expect from someone who's spent decades cultivating an image of austere authority. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound law books that are more prop than reference, a massive desk that forces visitors to feel small. Price herself sits behind it like a queen on a throne, her silver hair catching the late afternoon light, filtering through Venetian blinds. "Mr. Marshall," she says, not bothering to stand, "I wondered how long it would take you to find me." I close the door behind me, the radio heavy in my coat pocket, transmitting every word. Did you really think I'd just let it go? All those children? I thought you'd be smart enough to recognize a losing battle. She gestures to the chair across from her desk. Please, sit. Despite our disagreement, I prefer civilized conversation. I remain standing. Nothing civilized about what you've done. I pull out Ethan's diary and drop it on her desk. 60 years of sacrifices. Tell me, Judge, when did it start for you? When did you first hold down a child for Kellerman's procedures? Something flickers in her eyes. Not guilt, but something older. Weariness, perhaps. 1963, I was a young nurse, idealistic. The hospital was failing. The town dying. She doesn't touch the diary. Kellerman discovered the entities during renovation of the old wing. They'd always been there, beneath the hospital grounds. Always hungry. And you just decided to feed them children? We tried animals first, she says with such matter-of-fact coldness that my stomach turns. It didn't work. The entities specifically required human children, those already touched by illness, already close to crossing over. She straightens a pen on her desk. The results were immediate. Miraculous recoveries throughout the hospital, economic revival for the town, 5 children for a decade of prosperity seemed mathematically sound. I placed the ancient files from the basement room beside the diary. But it didn't stay at 5, did it? The entities got greedier. Or maybe you did. Price's mouth tightens into a thin line. The requirements evolved, as did the benefits. She studies me with clinical detachment. You have evidence that's 60 years old, Marshal. Records of medical procedures that can be explained away as experimental treatments of their time. Nothing that would stand in court. Maybe not, I concede. The radio transmitting every damning word. But I'm not just after court justice. I want you to live, knowing everyone in Mill Ridge understands what built their prosperity. I want the names of every child you sacrificed spoken aloud, remembered. And then what? She challenges. The hospital closes, the town fails, more children die from lack of medical care. You haven't thought this through. She leans forward. The full moon comes tomorrow night. The cycle must complete, or there will be consequences far worse than 5 carefully selected terminal cases. I slam my hand on her desk, rattling her perfect arrangement of pens. They weren't all terminal. Your own records show that. David Chen was recovering. Sarah Winters had treatable pneumonia. You made them sick to fit your criteria. A flash of genuine surprise crosses her face. You read the original files thoroughly. Every word, I confirm, including Kellerman's private notes about selecting children who wouldn't be missed, or whose parents wouldn't ask questions. You didn't just murder children, you targeted the vulnerable, the poor, the marginalized. Price stands slowly, her composure cracking like thin ice. You have no idea what's at stake, what we've contained all these years. The bargain doesn't just bring prosperity, it keeps something ancient asleep. Her voice drops. The 5 children aren't just sacrifices, they're a seal, a lock on a door that should never open. The office door bursts open before I can respond. Dr. Lowell rushes in, face flushed with panic. Eleanor, the records are gone, all of them. Someone's emptied the... He stops short at the sight of me, eyes widening in comprehension. You! Dr. Lowell, I acknowledge calmly. Perfect timing. Judge Price was just explaining how you've been containing ancient entities by murdering children for 6 decades. You fool, he spits. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, comes a new voice from the doorway, I think he's done us all a service. Officer Mark Benton stands there, police radio in hand, his boyish face hardened with disgust. 2 more officers flank him. Judge Price, Doctor. Lowell, I'm placing you under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and evidence tampering. To start with, Price doesn't look surprised, just resigned. You heard? Every word, Benton confirms. Been broadcasting to my cruiser for the past 20 minutes. Lowell lunges for the papers on Price's desk, but I block him easily. His desperation makes him clumsy. You can't. The cycle, the moon, is just a moon, I say firmly. And whatever you've been feeding all these years will have to find another source. As the officers read them their rights, Price fixes me with a stare that contains equal parts contempt and respect. The children you think you're saving, she says quietly. Remember their names tomorrow night when it comes. I'll remember all their names, I promise, the ones you took and the ones who will now live. The pediatric ward is quiet at midnight. Karen sits beside Ethan's bed, her exhaustion evident in the slope of her shoulders, but her eyes are clear for the first time in weeks. Ethan sleeps peacefully, no sign of the trances that have plagued him since admission. The doctors say he can go home tomorrow, she tells me softly. His readings are all normal. No more sleepwalking. No more voices. I settle into the chair opposite her. Price and Lowell aren't talking anymore, but the evidence is mounting. Benton found 3 more doctors and a nurse involved in the current cycle. They've identified the 5 children who are scheduled for special observation tomorrow night. Karen shudders. Will people believe it? Really believe what was happening? Some will. Some won't. The concrete evidence points to medical malpractice and murder, if not the supernatural elements. I look at Ethan's peaceful face. But the cycle is broken. Whatever hunger was growing down there will have to find another town, another bargain. As if hearing us, Ethan stirs slightly. His eyes open, clear and present, just a boy again, not a conduit for the dead. It's quiet now, he whispers. They're not talking anymore. A small, tired smile touches his lips. They said thank you. Karen brushes hair from his forehead, tears spilling silently down her cheeks. Rest now, baby. It's over. Ethan's eyes find mine. They won't come back? The voices? No, I say, with more certainty than I should feel. They've said what they needed to say, found the justice they needed to find. He nods, satisfied, and drifts back to sleep. The normal, healing sleep of a child unburdened by the weight of the dead. Outside, the moon is nearly full, its light spilling through the hospital windows in silver patterns. Tomorrow it will reach completion, but for the first time in 60 years, no children will be taken to that hidden room. No bargain will be renewed. I think of all the names in those files. Michael, Sarah, David, and dozens more across the decades, children who became entries in a ledger of atrocity. Now their stories will be told, their suffering acknowledged. Maybe that's all any of us want in the end, to be heard, to be remembered, to have our pain witnessed. Karen reaches across the bed, her hand finding mine in the half-darkness. We sit in companionable silence as the night deepens around us, 2 adults keeping watch over a child who carried too many voices for too long. Sometimes giving the lost a voice is enough. Sometimes bearing witness is the only justice we can offer. And sometimes that's enough to let the night end in peace.